still shared her big baby news at my party, even though she knew I've been trying hard to have a baby. Now her husband's leaving her because of it, and she's asking me for help. I'm 27 years old, and my husband and I have been trying to have a baby for almost 8 months now, without any success. We finally decided to get fertility tests done in a few weeks, even though we've been nervous about it. We've been together for 6 years, married for 3, and becoming a mother is something I've always dreamed of. My husband is equally excited about starting a family, and we've been trying everything from medicines to home remedies to conceive. However, despite our efforts, it's not happening, and it's starting to feel frustrating. To take our minds off things, we threw a big anniversary party recently. It was supposed to be a distraction, but it ended up causing more stress, all because of my sister-in-law, Jenny. Jenny recently got married in a grand ceremony. She can be a bit of a show-off and has a holier-than-thou attitude, but I've never had any issues with her or my husband's family before. However, what happened at the party has changed everything. You see, my husband's family didn't know that we were trying to have a baby. We wanted to tell them, but now after what happened at the party, I'm not sure I can look at Jenny or my in-laws the same way again. However, after a few unsuccessful months, we made the decision not to share our struggles with anyone until we had good news to share. Even my parents were unaware of our situation, and only a few of my friends knew, but they were busy with their own lives, so I didn't want to burden them with my problems. Then, a few days ago, Jenny and her husband were visiting us. While our husbands were outside fixing the sprinklers, Jenny noticed I was feeling down and asked me about it. I tried to brush it off, but she could tell something was bothering me. Eventually, I opened up to her about our difficulties conceiving. Even though we had decided to keep it private until we had better news, I was feeling so emotional and overwhelmed by our struggles that I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. I couldn't discuss it with my husband because he was going through the same struggle, and bringing it up repeatedly would only make us both feel worse. So when Jenny asked, I just blurted out the truth about our attempts to conceive. I was desperate to confide in someone. At the time, she seemed genuinely happy for me, even hugging me and expressing excitement about having a baby niece or nephew. But when I mentioned our struggles, she became sympathetic and offered to take me to a fertility specialist. While I appreciated her concern, I just needed someone to talk to, and I was grateful for her support and understanding. Our husbands were busy outside for about half an hour, giving Jenny and me a chance to have a meaningful conversation. It felt good to connect with her and feel understood during such a challenging time. When my husband returned, we had to change the subject. I felt much better, especially when Jenny hugged me goodbye, an unusual gesture from her. It was comforting to have someone to confide in. We didn't talk for a couple of days until she came over on the day of our anniversary party, which was 2 days ago. Even then, she was very friendly, hugging me once again and giving us a gift. I thought maybe we were finally becoming friends, but that hope didn't last long. At the party, we were enjoying ourselves, chatting, laughing, and having a good time with our guests. About an hour into the party, Jenny and her husband made an announcement. My husband looked confused, and I froze, fearing she would reveal our private conversation from a few days ago. But what she said was much worse. Her husband announced that they were expecting a baby in 9 months. The room erupted in applause and congratulations, but my husband and I were left stunned in a corner. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I had to rush to the restroom to compose myself. My husband tried to follow, but I needed a moment alone to gather my thoughts. I was trying to process the news and understand what was happening without causing a scene in front of our guests. As my husband stood outside the door, he reassured me that everything would be okay, emphasizing that our journey to parenthood might just take a bit longer. He reminded me that we had each other and would explore other options if needed. His words comforted me, so I let him in. I confided in him about Jenny knowing about our struggles, but he didn't react, choosing to focus on ensuring my well-being first. We stood together in silence, finding solace in each other's embrace. When we returned to the living room, the attention shifted back to us. Everyone had been searching for us, and as soon as we appeared, all eyes were on us. Unfortunately, my tear-streaked face and smudged mascara revealed my emotional state. Despite my efforts to appear composed, the evidence of my tears was evident. Concerned friends and family immediately bombarded me with questions about my well-being. I knew I couldn't hide my emotions, but I managed to muster up a weak excuse, telling everyone I just needed a break because I felt overwhelmed. It wasn't the best explanation, but it was enough to deflect their concern. After returning, my husband and I even congratulated Jenny and her husband despite her looking upset. We tried our best to carry on with the party gracefully, despite the emotional turmoil stirred by Jenny's announcement. Later, when we were alone, my husband and I discussed everything. I expressed my disappointment in Jenny's timing, considering I had confided in her about our struggles just days before. He agreed, acknowledging that even if I hadn't shared our situation with her, it was still insensitive of her to make such an announcement on our anniversary. We felt it was inappropriate for Jenny to overshadow our special day with her announcement without even asking for permission first. It became apparent during our discussion that when Jenny had comforted me earlier, she was already aware of her pregnancy, having found out a week before our party. It seemed like a deliberate move on her part to steal the spotlight, but we couldn't understand her motives for hurting me. My husband and I decided we needed to confront Jenny about her actions. We knew this conversation could lead to either reconciliation or cutting ties with her. We planned to talk to her after work, but unexpectedly we received a call from his parents urging us to come over for an urgent family meeting. We took a day off and headed to his parents' house, where everyone looked solemn and it felt like we were facing a judgment. Jenny avoided eye contact, and the tension escalated when my husband's parents began speaking. They revealed that during the party they had noticed only my husband and I leaving the room. It became clear that they had drawn conclusions based on this observation, and we felt like we were presumed guilty before even having a chance to explain ourselves. After Jenny made her pregnancy announcement and left the room for quite some time, my husband's parents confronted us, claiming that even when I congratulated them, it seemed insincere. I felt accused and didn't appreciate their tone, but I explained why I reacted the way I did. I shared with them that my husband and I had been struggling to conceive, and Jenny's announcement felt like the final blow. Our anniversary party was meant to distract us from our fertility struggles, but her news brought it all rushing back, overwhelming me to the point of tears. I thought my explanation was sufficient and valid, but there was silence for a moment. My husband and I anticipated they might inquire further about our plans for starting a family, but instead they continued to focus on our reaction to Jenny's announcement. His mother remarked that while she understood my upset as an adult, I should have better control over my emotions. She deemed my behavior at the party unacceptable. Honestly, I didn't see anything wrong with our behavior. We managed to maintain composure after returning to the living room, congratulating Jenny and her husband gracefully, but my husband and I found ourselves in a heated argument with his parents defending our actions. We argued that anyone else in our position might have reacted even worse, perhaps even asking Jenny and her husband to leave for making the day about themselves. I pointed out that Jenny knew about our struggles before the party and still chose to announce her pregnancy, disregarding our situation. If anyone should be held accountable, it should be her, not us. Chaos ensued as Jenny joined the argument, portraying herself as the victim. She claimed she hoped her news would bring us comfort, but my husband and I found her reasoning ridiculous. Her parents sided with her, urging us to apologize. They insisted she was only trying to be kind, so we needed to accept it and move on. There was a tumultuous exchange, with raised voices and heated arguments. At one point, my mother-in-law accused me of intentionally stealing Jenny's moment because of jealousy, alleging that my tears were a manipulative ploy for attention and sympathy. Her accusation deeply upset me and my husband, prompting him to assert that if they truly believed such things about me, then perhaps it was best for us to sever ties with them. Leaving their house, we continued to discuss their hurtful accusations and the audacity of playing the victim after deliberately ruining a joyous occasion for someone else. We didn't anticipate hearing from them so soon, but Jenny sent my husband a message expressing her hurt and disappointment over our reaction. She clarified that her intention was solely to share her joy and uplift us with her own pregnancy announcement, not to cause any distress. Jenny explained that she was taken aback by my emotional reaction, as she believed her news would bring happiness to everyone present. Feeling hurt, she partly agreed with her mother's accusation that I had overshadowed her moment, emphasizing that while anniversaries recur annually, the excitement of a first pregnancy announcement is a unique event. Jenny expressed her wish for understanding and empathy, suggesting that instead of solely focusing on my own struggles, I should have embraced her happiness and shared in the celebration. Uncertain about how to interpret her perspective, I turned to seek advice on whether my response was justified in crying and exiting the room during her announcement. We've received a lot of support from those who commented on our post and reached out to us. Knowing that I'm not alone in this struggle with pregnancy is comforting. Hearing the stories of other women who have faced similar challenges gives me hope and strength. Regardless of how we become parents, whether through pregnancy, surrogacy, or adoption, we are committed to providing love and care to our child. Tomorrow we'll undergo testing to determine our next steps, and we're hopeful for a positive outcome. As for the situation with my husband's family, there hasn't been any progress yet, but we're grateful for all the supportive comments we've received. My husband and I are certain that we are not to blame in this situation, so we see no reason to apologize. If his family wants to reconcile, it's Jenny who needs to offer a personal apology. Frankly, I believe they all owe us an apology for their unjust accusations when we visited their home. Their treatment of us was unacceptable, especially considering we were the ones wronged. I haven't heard from any of them yet, but it's only been 2 days, so they may be waiting for us to reach out first. While Jenny's actions didn't surprise me, I was taken aback by her parents' entitled and delusional behavior. They've always treated my husband and Jenny equally, so this sudden favoritism towards her is baffling. I suspect my husband siding with me instead of immediately congratulating his sister may have upset them, but that's just speculation. As for my parents' take on the situation, they didn't have much to say. We aren't as close as my husband is with his family. My parents acknowledged that Jenny's actions were wrong and offered their sympathies to me. However, there wasn't much discussion about their reaction to the situation. I had already explained everything to them the day after the party when they called to inquire about why I had been crying after Jenny's announcement. While they offered consolation, we all knew they were too preoccupied with work to provide much support. This has been the norm since I was a child, and although I don't hold it against them, the lack of parental presence has contributed to our distant relationship as adults. This detachment from my parents is one reason why I am so determined to become a mother myself. I've always dreamed of having a close-knit family of my own, confident that I would give my children the love and attention they deserve. While I used to feel hurt by my parents' absence, I've come to accept it as part of my reality. Despite our distance, I still hold a lot of love for them. While my parents and I share love for each other, our relationship lacks the closeness typically associated with family. Surprisingly, I've grown accustomed to this dynamic and find it acceptable. Jenny reached out to my husband today regarding an emergency. He couldn't answer her call at work, so she left a text suggesting they meet near his workplace for coffee after his shift. Sensibly, my husband forwarded the message to me, and I'd promptly joined him at his workplace. Together, we headed to the coffee shop where Jenny was waiting, despite her indication that she only wished to speak with him. Although she appeared displeased by my presence, she refrained from mentioning it. Upon arriving at the coffee shop, we ordered drinks and awaited Jenny's initiation of the conversation. Both my husband and I had decided not to broach the subject first, as it was Jenny's summons. The awkward silence persisted for approximately 5 minutes until Jenny eventually broke it, albeit with evident frustration. She offered a semblance of an apology for the recent conflict, though her tone betrayed any sincerity. Rather than await our response, she quickly proceeded to recount the events of the previous altercation at her parents' house. Syl's husband had come to understand the reality of the situation. He realized that Syl had not obtained my consent before announcing her pregnancy at our anniversary party. Initially, he had believed Syl's assertion that she had sought my approval. However, following the confrontation, he saw through her deception. Unlike the rest of the family, he possessed the courage and moral compass to recognize the truth, that we were being unfairly vilified. Upon returning home, he confronted Syl, questioning whether she had lied to him. Aware of the truth, Syl confessed that she had not sought my permission, assuming that her announcement would only bring joy. However, her husband, not easily deceived, saw through her excuses without hesitation. During their argument, Syl's husband confronted her about the fact that Jenny had been aware of my struggles with conceiving before making the announcement at our party. This revelation led him to believe that Jenny had maliciously intended to hurt me by making the announcement, despite knowing it would cause me pain. He accused her of purposefully causing me further distress by lying about obtaining my consent. Listening to Syl recount her husband's words brought a sense of vindication to my husband and me, as it seemed someone had finally seen through Jenny's deceit. However, this wasn't the primary reason Jenny had requested to meet us. Her husband had informed her that he wouldn't communicate with her or consider forgiveness until we forgave her. Despite her relentless attempts to reach out to him, he remained steadfast in his decision. Now, as a last resort, Jenny had reached out to us in the hope of seeking forgiveness and reconciliation. She came to us, pleading for forgiveness and asking us to relay the message to her husband. However, what followed may not have been our proudest moment, but it was necessary. In response, we couldn't help but laugh at her plea. We made it clear that she had brought this upon herself, and now she must face the consequences alone. By deliberately hurting us, especially after pretending to be my friend, she had crossed a line. We refused to accept an apology that lacked sincerity. My husband bluntly advised her to inform her husband that he was justified in distancing himself from her. He expressed doubts about her suitability for motherhood, given her callous actions. Despite her attempts to sway us with tears, we remained steadfast. Her and her family's lack of concern for our feelings during this ordeal was evident. As I shed tears before, now I found solace in knowing where I stood with them. It was time they learned their place in our lives as well. Returning home, we left their drama behind us, uncertain of their future. Yet I couldn't help but hope her husband files for divorce and gains full custody of the child. Undoubtedly the best outcome for the child's well-being. On a brighter note, I received the results of our fertility tests. Thankfully, neither my husband nor I have fertility issues. With this relief, we plan to approach trying to conceive with renewed strength and a lighter heart. Perhaps we had been too stressed before, overlooking the joy in the process. In another turn of events, Jenny and her husband are headed for divorce. It seems their relationship had been strained for some time. While her parents unfairly blame me for their troubles, my husband and I have severed ties and blocked them from reaching us. We've made it clear to relatives that we won't attend events where they're present. Fortunately, most understand our stance, disapproving of Jenny's actions. While I empathize with their situation, they brought it upon themselves, leaving us with little recourse.